This is a special message for Premier Doug Ford. In loving memory of the late, great Robert Bruce Ford, Canada's greatest mayor. Why is Robert Bruce Ford the greatest mayor Canada ever had? Because Robert Bruce Ford created a city of fun, not a city of guns. A city of hope, not a city of dope. A city where there was honesty and possibility of prosperity. Robert Bruce Ford was no John Tory. Robert Bruce Ford gave service, not lip service, even at the expense of his own persecution. Robert Bruce Ford served us till his last breath. We, the people of the city of Toronto, hold the children of Robert Bruce Ford a great apology for the great injustice we did to this fantastic, amazing, stupendous mayor. A mayor, while facing alcoholism and drug addiction, still had the will to put the taxpayers first. A mayor that would go down into the ghetto. A mayor that would go into the cesspool of Toronto Community Housing. A mayor that would return the phone calls of even the poorest and the lowest in our society. A mayor that took care of his family. A mayor that loved his brother. Today we will find out, does his brother love him as much as he loved you? Premier Doug Ford, in the heat of battle, I have not been as hard on you as I've been on your brother. Because there was a reason I was so tough on your brother. In 2009, and you can view it in the video, the man who will be mayor, Kevin Clark. In 2009, a rogue reporter from iWeekly magazine, a subsidiary of the Toronto Star, did a poll of the top 5 candidates to be mayor. Number 1 was David Miller. Number 2 was former Health Minister George Smitherman. Number 3 was former TTC Chair Karen Stint. Number 4 is the current mayor, the extreme failure in the city of Toronto, John, former head of Rogers Communication Tory, a man who has fixed 2014 and the 2018 race for Toronto mayor in collaboration with his former associates from the media to blackball Mr. Kevin Clark, the 6-time mayoral candidate, now 7, 10-time provincial, 5-time federal, the only person in Canadian history to ever face 3 levels of government simultaneously in the same year, and the man who brokered the largest children's rights case in the death, murder, and torture of 7-year-old Caitlin Sampson, 7 years after she was murdered, and the mother was so frustrated in dealing with Kathleen Wynne, who victimized her, that she contacted Mr. Kevin Clark after she was told that if you wish justice for your murdered child, contact Mr. Kevin Clark. I was tough on Rob because I was the 5th choice that year by Edward Stevens poll to be mayor, right behind John Tory. And for us to say Mr. Kevin Clark is not the clear front runner for Toronto mayor. Now, after he was polled, won behind John Tory in 2009, the 2010 election, is to say that Edward King is a fringe reporter. Robert Bruce Ford came to be mayor because, as I was told by a security guard who was present, there was a special meeting held at CTV at 599 Queen Street. And the discussion was, are we going to push Kevin Clark? According to the security guard who was there in that meeting, the media decided not to push Kevin Clark because they felt they could not control him. But they could not ignore that Mr. Clark, being a homeless man at that time, was pulled to be in the top 5 for mayor. So as I was told the discussion went, was they say Kevin Clark is loved. The people are going to be outraged if we do not have somebody on the ballot that we push that express the values as Kevin Clark. And at that point, someone spoke up and says, how about that popular city councilor from Etobicoke? He said, who? Oh, Rob Ford. Real name is Robert Bruce Ford. So they decided to push Robert Bruce Ford. And Robert Bruce Ford became mayor of Toronto. Now, many will say that he's a media-made mayor, only if you are comparing Robert Bruce Ford being a replacement for Mr. Kevin Clark. But that's the only way you could say Robert Bruce Ford was a media-made mayor. Robert Bruce Ford was the people's mayor. Robert Bruce Ford did not let money, influence, or social status affect the service he gave to the people of the city of Toronto. Robert Bruce Ford stands up to abuse of authority. But what the media did not know was that Robert Bruce Ford had the same issue that Kevin Clark has, an addiction. And Robert Bruce Ford excelled, but not for his own glory. Robert Bruce Ford did it for the people of the city of Toronto. And even when it came to light that Robert Bruce Ford had an addiction, Robert Bruce Ford excelled this city to a world class. Oh, God bless the soul of Robert Bruce Ford. Only if we could go back in time and we could have Robert Bruce Ford back with us. Imagine how this city would have changed from the gun violence, from the abuse, the alcoholism, the public alcoholism, the public drug addiction. How the city would change with the respect for the people, the taxpayers of the city, and for all that live in freedom. Yes. During the days of Robert Bruce Ford, we never needed to set up metal detectors at City Hall. No, because Robert Bruce Ford was a man of the people. But currently we have metal detectors at City Hall because our current so-called mayor, the man who collaborated with the Toronto media to fix the 2014, 2018, and now the 2022 race for Toronto mayor against the true, rightful mayor of Toronto, Mr. Kevin Clark. Premier Doug Ford, I must tell you that in the eve of battle and the eve of seeking the public service that the people deserve, I may have said some harsh things about you. Today, I sincerely apologize. To me, you have made one great error, and that was to listen to the experts in reference to COVID. Those in the medical industry who wanted to make profit at the expense of the people of Toronto, and the province of Ontario. I will discuss that with you when I get an opportunity to meet with you. The purpose of this video is to honor the loving memory of Canada's greatest mayor, your brother, Robert Bruce Ford, and to also apologize to you, your family, his children, his friends, and his loved ones for the manipulation and the defamation of his character by the Toronto media, who took his addiction and exploited with no regards or concern for the great service that this man has done for the people of the city of Toronto. In 2016, I met you for the first time in Etobicoke North. I was facing your nephew, Michael Ford, to succeed Robert Bruce Ford. I was very, very harsh and outspoken against your nephew. And when I showed up in Etobicoke, your nephew showed that he has the quality of a Ford. They always say if you want durability, get yourself a Ford. A Ford. If you want something that's reliable, get yourself a Ford. Just like the little Ford Escorts that used to go all the way. And just like the Ford Explorer and all the fine vehicles made by Ford. In Toronto, we had quality with Robert Bruce Ford. And we threw it away by putting the negative, the one negative of Robert Bruce Ford above all the positive that he did for the people of the city of Toronto and beyond. I wish to send a sincere apology as the incoming mayor of Toronto to the Ford family, to Robert Bruce Ford's children and friends and loved ones for the misguided, disgusting way that Robert Bruce Ford was treated by the Toronto media when it came to light that he had a drug addiction issue. That being said, I gained respect for you, Douglas Ford, when in Etobicoke North, when I was facing your nephew, Michael Ford. First, back to Michael. When I showed up in Etobicoke North for a debate, knowing that I was there to hammer, who was the first person to get up and say, Mr. Clark, I'm happy you're here. It was Michael Ford. That first showed the Ford respect, the respect Fords have for people. Did not matter my social status to Michael as being a former homeless man or whether I was homeless. Did not matter my pigmentation. Michael showed respect. You, Mr. Ford, has gained a second respect. I'm going to go on to the main reason why you have gained respect from me. But the first one, this one here, is your stance on not making the Queen's death a holiday. That has given me total respect for it. Total respect, because you have sent a clear message that the influence of one, of status quo, or of financial resources does not override the many. All the services that the people of the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario rely on, those services would not be there on the day of the Queen's death if you had declared that day a holiday. Excellent work, Premier Ford. Now let's get back to the first form of respect. When I left the debate in Etobicoke North, and I was heading back to Toronto, I was poked in the eyes as a child. So I am 50% blind in one eye. Beyond that, I heard a man calling out to me, Kevin, Kevin, Kevin. I looked, but I could not see the man. As the man came closer, I realized it was you, Doug Ford. You approached me and says, "Kevin, it is so great to meet you. I had to tell you how much my brother, Rob Ford, respected you. You gave me a business card then. It has since gone. And you said, anything you need, Kevin, just give me a call." I was going to use it to ask for you to implement the Caitlin Principle, not only into law in Ontario to address children in care, but all across every single household in the city of Toronto. Caitlin Principle has been put into law. So we are not going to ask you to address that issue of children's rights this time. You made a promise, and we hope that you are as sincere as your brother, Canada's greatest mayor, Robert Bruce Ford, was. You say anything you need, just ask. I am asking you for your support in the 2022 race for Toronto Mayor on the fact that the Toronto media has collaborated with the former head of Rogers Communication to blackball me and to label me a fringe. How do we know this is most likely true? Because I'm a 6-time mayoral candidate. I'm a 10-time provincial, 5-time federal. I formed the 14th registered political party in Ontario, and I am now the leader of the people. I blocked Maxime Bernier from using my party's name that he, I won't use the word stole, took as his home, from using it in an Ontario provincial election. I brokered the largest children's rights case in Canadian history in the death, murder, torture, and abuse of 7-year-old Caitlin Sampson. I have faced former Premier Bob Rae in his last election. I faced former NDP leader Jack Layton in his first federal election. I have faced David Miller to succeed Bob Rae in York Southwestern. I have also faced David Miller for Toronto Mayor. I have faced all the biggest politicians. I have faced current Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who would not face me or debate me democratically. I have faced John Nunziata. I have faced you, Mr. Ford. I have faced your brother, Robert Bruce Ford. Those names I have mentioned are some of the biggest names in Canadian political history, but yet the media would try to let the public know, or not let the public know, that I'm the clear front runner for Toronto Mayor. So today, Mr. Premier, after the exceptional work you have done for the people of Ontario, I hope you will do the same exceptional work for the people of Toronto by publicly endorsing the biggest adversary of your brother, Robert Bruce Ford, but also the biggest supporter of your brother, Robert Bruce Ford, Mr. Kevin Clark, for Toronto's 66th mayor. To God be the glory. And let's bring peace, love, hope, prosperity for the people of the city of Toronto, for that will be justice for all. And justice is to create a city of fun, not a city of guns. A city of hope, not a city of dope. A city of prosperity, not lip service. A city of a real creation, creating goodness, not discrimination. and not a city of manipulation. Together, Mr. Premier, we can house the homeless. Together, we can create affordable housing. Together, we can feed our hunger. Together, we can stand up to abuse of authority. Together, we can restore confidence back into law enforcement by making our law enforcement lawful. Together, Mr. Premier, we can do what you and your brother has done. Create political change to give hope and prosperity to all people in the city of Toronto and beyond. Mr. Premier, I ask for your public support in loving memory of Canada's greatest mayor, Mr. Robert Bruce Ford. Now, Mr. Premier, there is a downside to you supporting me. And that downside is that they will say your brother was not the greatest mayor in Canadian history when I become mayor, because I will be great. But no matter how great I am, I would never say I am greater than you as Premier or Robert Bruce Ford as mayor. I will say I may be as great, but I will never be greater. You know why, Mr. Premier? Because you, as well as your brother and myself, has shown that we are servants of the people. Thank you for taking your time, Mr. Premier, to serve the people of the city of Toronto, Ontario, and beyond. And I await your press conference that will announce that you will be supporting Mr. Kevin Clark for Toronto's 66th mayor. To God be the glory. And we ask for blessing and prosperity for you, your family, your loved ones, and all